I've been a volunteer fan since I was probably 12 years old. Um, and that was, in the years immediately before they won the national title game. So I say that to say this: I've been watching college football since I was a little kid. And whether they were teams I liked or teams that I didn't like, I'm a fan of the game first. Tennessee just happens to be my favorite team. Um, it, and something that I always noticed and that I always really respected, even though I wasn't a fan of Alabama necessarily, was the discipline of Nick Saban coached teams. You can look back in all the years that he was there and all the games that he coached, and I could be wrong, but I don't ever remember any of his teams ever getting into a fight during a game. Um, that was because of him. He was probably one of the last coaches, it seems, to kind of come from that old school mentality of coaching where his teams liked him, his teams respected him, but his teams were afraid of him. And it was that healthy dose of fear that kind of kept everybody in line. Beside the fact that, if you went too far left or right of center, you probably wouldn't be on his team anymore, regardless of any kind of disciplinary action you were going to have to face. Um, and we've seen a change, not just in Alabama specifically, though that is one of my examples, but in other teams too. It's like coaching isn't what it used to be. Now there are still some coaches around who definitely still have a very firm grip on their guys, both in a disciplinary and fashion, and everybody kind of stays in line. But and I know there's been a lot of talk about the games from this past weekend, but this whole Malachi Moore thing, this temper tantrum he threw, raise your hand if if you think that would have happened if Nick Saban would have been on the sideline. No chance. No chance. And Malachi Moore played for Saban a lot. The guy's a fifth year player, and he's out there, pushing guys' heads into the grounds, kicking balls that were placed, by the official, throwing his mouthpiece. That would have been just one thing. The story was that he got frustrated. They were trying to sub somebody in for him. He basically ignored the coaches, waved off the sub, and threw his mouthpiece down the field. That would have been enough to put him on the bench probably for a couple of weeks, in a Nick Saban coach team. I could be wrong, but all that aside, Malachi Moore wouldn't have even done that if Saban would have been the head coach. Which basically it's glaring differences are starting to come out between the way the Alabama team is now under Kalen DeBoer and the way it was under Nick Saban. And I'm not doing this or saying this to trash Coach DeBoer, but it's obvious that from a from a discipline standpoint, he doesn't have a very good hold on that team. And there have been countless people come out and say that the way he runs that program, his mark that he's put on it, so to speak, that I've talked about before, just the way he runs it is so different from the way Coach Saban did it, and word has actually gotten out that a lot of the more veteran guys that have been around for a while don't like it. Yeah, I don't know anything specific. However, as y'all all know by now, word came out yesterday on Monday, early in the day, about Jaheim Otis hitting the transfer portal. The guy's a junior defensive lineman, like 325 pounds, from over here at Columbia, Mississippi. Very highly recruited. Like I said, played a lot of games, and I don't know. He's saying that it's because of playing time and all this, that, or whatever. We never get the whole story, if we even get the correct story, the true story. But you know, so Jaheim Otis is out. He's planning to basically just redshirt the rest of the year, and hit the transfer portal at the end of the year and go somewhere else. I would be surprised if he's the only one. If the culture, you know at Alabama is so much different now than it was under Saban, then a lot of those older, more uh, seasoned players, more experienced players are going to want to find somewhere else to go because, like I said, not saying that Coach DeBoer is a bad coach. I mean, he took Washington to the playoffs last year. I mean, the guy obviously knows what he's doing. But, if he's got players in week 6, I mean, kicking, I mean, the referee comes over there, places the ball for the next play, and he purposely walks through a crowd of players and kicks the ball. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Never. How that didn't get him thrown out of the game, I don't know. And then, gets mad with the coaches on the sideline and throws his mouthpiece down the field. What are they at Florida throwing shoes or something? I don't know. I didn't get it, but obviously, you know if even if the team respects Coach DeBoer, they could really probably use with a healthy dose of fear because he obviously did that not caring if there were going to be consequences. And then DeBoer comes out today, oh, we're not going to suspend him, and he kind of just sidelines it all off. He just kind of brushes it all off like it's not that big a deal. Of course, he said they handled it internally. What was that? You know, the time is going to tell whether we see something like this, either from Malachi Moore or another player on that team again. And by then, it's going to be pretty ridiculous. If another Alabama player, whether it's pointed out by the media or not, if another Alabama player kind of has the same showing, of emotion that they obviously can't control, then the word's going to be out. DeBoer doesn't have this team, and even the leaders on the team, there's no accountability and there's no fear of accountability. So, and it's not just them. I'm not doing this just to beat up on Alabama. South Carolina, another player or another coach rather that I've never really had anything for. I've never really liked the guy, but Shane Beamer at South Carolina. This this guy, he has a player. They're behind 27-3. South Carolina's behind 27-3 against Ole Miss. Ole Miss has the ball, and it's their third down play. The defense is trying to get off the field. Well, a South Carolina defensive back, one of their defensive backs, I believe, gets a sack on the quarterback and then does his little gun routine like he's shooting Jackson Dart after a sack. Third down, they're in fourth down. You just got your defense off the field. Flag comes out, 15 more yards. Ole Miss continues the drive. They show Shane Beamer on the sidelines, and he's got that headset on, and he is ripping into somebody. Whoever I would not have wanted to been whoever was on the other side of that headset, whether it was his defensive coordinator, defensive backs coach, or what. But he was just letting them have it. Here's my question: when Dylan Stewart, the player that did this whole uproar, when he got to the sidelines, did the coach jump into him like he did that assistant coach? Did Shane Beamer rip a couple of pounds off of him like he did a coach, or did he just kind of let it go? Beamer's never come across like somebody who was real big into really getting on to his guys. Now, granted, yeah, South Carolina is not known for discipline problems or fighting in games or anything like that. But Beamer has always come across like a guy that wanted everybody to like him. He just wants to be liked. Um, but players like that pretty much just doing whatever they want without basically fear of retribution. That's the problem. And these are younger guys, 18, 19, late teens, early 20s. I'm not going to call them kids. They're young men. These coaches, like Coach Saban liked to do, develop these guys as people, coach them as people as well as athletes, and help themselves make them better people. Are we getting that? Or is it just, who can win me the most games, and I don't care what you do before or after the whistle? Don't embarrass me too bad, but just win me some games, and I don't care how you do it, kind of thing. If that's the direction it's going in, I'm not looking forward to it. I'm not a fan. Yeah, you get two, teams like, get like a on-field scuffle or a little, push and match, or even if it kind of a fight does break out or whatever, that kind of thing. is a little exciting, from time to time. But the stuff that these guys pulled this past weekend were like, dude, come on. You really didn't get a really good point across. You look like you were just throwing a fit. Who walks up to a ball that's been placed by an official and kicks it across the field? Who does that? And then this whole deal of shooting the guns at each other and all this. I'm not getting into that, but time will tell how much of that kind of thing these coaches are going to let go before you start seeing some suspensions or otherwise. Yeah, and Tennessee's not free of it either. It video all over the internet of Amari Thomas pushing a fan at the Arkansas game. Now, you know, yeah, he has come out and apologized for it. Whether the other guys came out and apologized for what they did, I don't know. I haven't seen anything. Both Malachi Moore and Dylan Stewart, but basically, if for no other reason, come out and apologize for embarrassing your team the way you did. But Amari Thomas has come out. I'm not expecting a suspension, and you know maybe he should have. I'm trying to call this as fair and as fair as I can. Maybe Amari Thomas should be suspended for a game. That's but I again, like with Malachi Moore, leave it up to the schools. Alabama has decided not to suspend him. I don't know what they're going to do with Thomas. It's not my decision, obviously, um, but at some point, there's going to have to be a little more reinforcement. Um, uh, Ideally, you would want to see the coaches handle it in house, but you would like to see it be effective. Some kind of in-house deterrent that keeps this stupid stuff from happening. But if it continues to become such an egregious thing and it gets worse over time, now in the day and age of NIL, all these players want to be treated like adults, want to be paid real money like adults. Hey, in the real world, there are consequences for your actions. So, how far out of the realm of possibility would it be to one day see fines from the leagues, from the SEC or the ACC or whatever, for some of the egregious, um, unsportsmanlike penalties you see, and like what Amari Thomas, pushing that fan after the game when they were trying to get out of the stadium. You know, would we one day see monetary fines for that kind of thing, or if not from the leagues, from the individual schools, NIL collectives? You want to hit somebody where it hurts, hit them in the money, and maybe that might be something that might have to be looked at in the future. But yeah, just some of the way some of these players, react, and you know, it really goes back to coaching. Now, it does not take any of the blame off the players, but come on, coaches, help your guys, coach your guys in other things than just how to play the game. Coach them in how to present themselves, how to act. When an unforeseen stressful moment comes, like it did for Alabama, you know this is how you deal with that, in a proper, respectful way, without embarrassing somebody else or yourself, really. Because, like I said, that whole thing, both with Dylan Stewart, what he pulled in the South Carolina game, the Omari Thomas push, and the whole Malachi Moore thing, you embarrass yourself before you embarrass anybody else, and you do embarrass other people when that kind of behavior comes out. So, you know, coaches do a little better, pay a little better attention. But for the most part, they do a great job. But I can't imagine how hard a college football coach's job is and how stressful it is. You'll never really see me come on here and really get down on a coach unless it's just something kind of over the top and blatant. And I won't get into the whole thing now. All the criticism that Coach Heupel has caught. With the way these last couple of games have gone. Hey, he's still a good coach. He's figuring it out. Let him figure it out. Let the team figure it out. They got hit in the mouth and maybe they needed it. How do you respond from something like that? So yeah, like I said, for the most part, 99.5% of the time, these coaches do a great job. But when you have stuff like what the few things happened this past weekend happened, it really kind of shines a glaring negative light on some stuff. But hey, it was a great weekend in college football, and the slate of games we've got coming up is going to be just as good. I know. Let's see, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, Ole Miss, and LSU, and I believe Kentucky's playing Vanderbilt. So we'll see about doing some previews of those games in the coming days. But then definitely when we get to the weekend, we'll have the Saturday morning rundown and then the Sunday recap. And then Monday we'll go over the late Sunday or maybe sometime on Monday we'll go over the new AP poll when it comes out. So thanks again for checking out the video. Share these around with anybody you think won't be too annoyed by them, and we'll see you next time.